what is the purpose of Dzogchen? Well, in Tibetan, Dzogchen means the great perfection. But what does that mean? Well, in Tantric practice, we have two principal phases of practice, which are known as in Tibetan Kerim and Dzogchen, or the generation process. And some people translate stages of production or something like this. And the second Dzogchen, the perfection process, stages of completion or something. But Rinpa here, stages, but it's also a process, something you develop. So, when you're doing tantric practice, you are working with the mind. The mind is functioning. You're creating visualizations and so on. As I said, the purpose here is to access certain potentialities which already exist within you, but are latent at this time. So also Tantra is working very much with energies. But when we come to Dzogchen, then the emphasis is on mind rather than on body or energy. But Dzogchen doesn't have any limitations, so all kinds of practices belonging to Sutra and Tantra can be used, including visualization practices. But generally these are much simpler than one would encounter in Tantra. Now, one can get into Dzogchen through doing a tantric transformation practice, that is, through doing sadhana. Sadhana in Sanskrit means a practice of realization. And through practicing sadhana, we develop certain capacities known as siddhis. These are spiritual and psychic attainments. And having developed them, we then become an adept or a siddha. So all these terms are then related. But the method in Tantra is the path of transformation, the method of transformation. And what we're principally transforming here is energy, and that includes our entire dimension of energy, and this also entails our vision, the way we see things. So I said transforming our impure karmic vision into pure vision. Now, when we're doing an elaborate sadhana, there can be a lot going on there, not only the visualization of the yidam and the retinue of deities of that yidam inside a nice, big, beautiful mandala palace, but then there's offerings, puja offerings being made and so on, and then finally recitation of the mantras. The heart mantra of the yidam authenticates and makes real that experience. And then with the Dzogchen, the perfection process, we engage the actual experience that the yidam has through the doing of tumo or inner heat practice, or as it's called in Hinduism, kundalini, and so on. And at the end of that, we dissolve that visualization and we relax again into the state out of which the visualization originally arose. This is a state of nyamchak, or contemplation. Now, when we have been doing this tantric practice, the mind has been very much engaged in producing this virtual reality in which we find ourselves. And this has used up a lot of mental energy. We can feel the energy we're putting into it. And then suddenly we stop. Now this is also like in doing intensive sports or hard labor. The body may be very active doing things, and then suddenly we stop and allow ourselves to collapse. And if we've done this, you find that for an instant or two or three, the mind stops working. Well, the same thing can happen when we stop doing the visualization practice. We suddenly collapse into the state of contemplation, or nyamjap. And at that time we have the opportunity to discover the natural state of the nature of mind. But this isn't always necessary to do this tantric transformation practice first. In order to do that, there's different ways we can enter into the natural state. And so in Dzogchen Semde, we principally use the method of shamatha, or shine it's called in Tibetan. This is fixating the mind on a single object of meditation so that the mind becomes calm and we find ourselves in a calm state of mind. Now that's an experience that is not the natural state, but it opens up the possibility of discovering ourselves in the natural state. If we do some practice and then the mind suddenly stops, that is the experience of Hedawa, it's called. Hedawa itself is an experience, it's not the natural state, but it may open the opportunity to experience the natural state. Now the natural state, when we initially experience it, is an experience without thoughts. That is, we're not disturbed with thoughts. However, thoughts may arise again. But simply being in a state without thoughts, this is also just an experience. It is not in itself the nature of the mind. For example, you have a cow out in the pasture nearby, and she's chewing on her cud or her grass. And for 5 or 10 minutes, even longer, the cow doesn't have a single thought in her head until the car passes by and the cow thinks, oh, there goes the car. And then for another 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, she doesn't say anything later. But it doesn't mean this cow is an enlightened Buddha. So mitopa, or having no thoughts, is not necessarily being in the natural state. In fact, that is lungmaten. It's a dull state of mind without thoughts. So having the mind of a cow doesn't mean you're an enlightened Buddha. This is a criticism that some Tibetan lamas have lodged at Zen without really understanding what Zen is about, and part of that is just anti-Chinese propaganda. So, when you find yourself in the natural state, how do you know you're in the natural state? So you've done your tantric transformation practice, and then you have dissolved that visualization. Then do you think you're looking at the clear blue sky, or what? Well, this has been a debate also in Tibet, because according to the Madhyamaka philosophy, the ultimate reality is shunyata, or the state of emptiness. Now, emptiness means here that things, ourselves, but also all the phenomena we perceive, are lacking any inherent existence. If they had an inherent existence, they would have their essence, they would be what they are, and they could not become something else. But this is against our experience that everything is changing from moment to a moment, and things are never the same. So objects, therefore, are something constructed by the mind, but they are lacking any inherent existence. And according to Madhyamaka, they are just names. Well, in the Sutra system, then one meditates upon this using analytical meditation. For example, you go outside and you meditate upon your car, and where is the essence of your car? Where is the essence of car? But then if you look at this car, it consists of wheels, fenders, various parts and so on. It's actually, a car is just a collection of parts. Then you analyze each of those parts, and if you did a chemical analysis, you would find out they were made of various chemicals. These chemicals are made of various molecules. These molecules are made of various atoms. These atoms are made of various subatomic particles. These subatomic particles are made of quarks. Quarks are made of superstrings, and superstrings are only one-dimensional. You analyze them, there's nothing there but empty space, so there's no inherent existence to be found anywhere. Everything is empty. The idea among certain Tibetan schools, in particular the Gyalpa, is you meditate on this for long periods of time, like 20 years and so on. You're selecting different objects. Each time you do this analysis, and you find, well, there's no inherent existence there. You do this on yourself. You look at your mind. Where is this self there, for example? And you find your mind is a stream of consciousness with different experiences. You look at these experiences, you analyze them, and so on. You go on, and you find, well, there is actually, it's insubstantial. There's nothing there. They assert that if you do this long enough, then you come to experience this, and you understand it, and then you realize shunyata, or emptiness. But this is not the way we proceed in Tantra and Dzogchen. In Tantra, we begin with the state of emptiness. This is the spacious, open state out of which your visualization arises. How do you get into a state of that simulates emptiness? Well, you don't have to go to your local health center and book yourself into a isolation tank or samadhi chamber to do this. You can just sit there in meditation and close your eyes. All of a sudden, your impure karmic vision is dissolved because your eyes are closed. Then you can begin imagining and visualizing. So very easy to do then with Tantra. You don't have to do this elaborate analytical meditation in the beginning. You can just simply close your eyes. In Dzogchen, again, the procedure is a little different, because in Dzogchen, emptiness is there all the time, whether you're aware of it or not, but because your mind is so busy thinking this and that, and emotions are coming this way and that way, that your normal state of being in this world is the distraction. And so the whole problem then, according to Dzogchen, is that with each lifetime in samsara, we're distracted. So how do you overcome the distraction? This is the one of the points of shamatha meditation, or shine, finding yourself in a calm state of mind. If you try and suppress thoughts and not allow them to come, you're not going to be very successful doing this, because then you just feed them more energy and they come back at you later even stronger. But you can do this a bit more indirectly by fixating the mind on a single object of meditation. In the sutra system, it doesn't matter what you might choose as an object of meditation. It can be an image of the Buddha, for example. It could be a flower or a cup or whatever. And then the whole point is to fixate your mind strongly on that object of meditation so that distracting thoughts don't arise. When you concentrate your mind on an object of meditation, you contract the space of your mind, and then it allows no space or room for distracting thoughts to arise. If you've done any target practice with a bow and arrow or rifle or so on, then you have experienced this. But simply having no thoughts is not the purpose in Dzogchen. Now also in Tantra we have fixating the mind, but there we can include movement with this, so that we are meditating on the yidam, and the yidam or those around it or other elements in the mandala can move and so on, become almost like a drama, like watching a fascinating film or TV show, so that you're no longer aware of what's happening around you, getting caught up in the latest broadcast of Game of Thrones or something like this. So we also have this fifth fixation of attention in tantric practice. In Dzogchen, we also can use fifth fixation as a way of discovering what is mind and what is the nature of mind. In Dzogchen, this is a very important consideration in the beginning, because in order to discover the nature of the mind, we must first discover what is mind. Now, of course, every day when we wake up, and especially after we have our first cup of coffee, we experience mind. But mind just comes and goes, and we are distracted, and we're not aware that we're aware, or that mind is operating. So we have to slow things down. This is why we sit down, we meditate, breathe in the normal relaxed way, and then fixate our eyes on some object of meditation or something, whether it's actually physically present or visualized. And then we can discover who we are and what we're doing and what we experience, and then we can discover mind, because then we can observe the rising of thoughts, how they arise in consciousness, are there for a time and then pass away again. We can also observe how we become distracted, because this thought may arise, it can give birth to other thoughts, it seems fascinating, interesting. We forget then to stay on center and keep observing, but it takes us off on a trip. So halfway down the road, we remember, oh, we're supposed to be meditating, and then we have to come back where we began. But by doing meditation practice, then we can discover what is mind. Well, then, the next thing is to look at thoughts when they arise. And we have to look at where do they come from? Where do these thoughts go, stay? Where do these thoughts go? Do they come from anywhere? Do they go anywhere? Do they stay anywhere? If they stay somewhere, if they are mind, where is this mind located? Where is this thought located? Is it inside? Is it in our heart? Or is it in our brain? Science tells us now it's in our brain, but do we actually feel thoughts there? What science tells us, this is someone else telling us, this is all theory and conceptualization and so on. We're looking at experience. Experience is the touchstone. That's the measure. What are we experiencing at this very moment? Our mind actually creates our experience and also our experience of time. The sequencing of events and so on. This is all done by the mind. So it's possible to slow down the mind. Like in the old days, we had these motion picture projectors, not like this machine, but in the old days. And you could slow it down. You could put it into slow motion. And when the film is running fast through the projector, you're getting the illusion of movement in front of you, where it's being projected. But if you put it into slow motion, eventually you can see each frame of the film coming up and moving through it like that. Well, it's somewhat similar to the mind. Normally the mind is working so fast that we don't see the processes which are going on there and the different mental components which enter into it. But through practicing meditation, we can slow down the processes of the mind. So we get to see how thoughts develop and where they go and so on. We also clear the space of our mind, which normally, because we've been distracted, like the winds blowing across the surface of the lake, which stirs up all the mud on the bottom of the lake. It becomes cloudy, and then we can't see into the waters of the lake. But if the winds fall away for several days, and the lake remains calm, and the surface is smooth, then eventually all the sediment or mud that has been stirred up settles down to the bottom, and then we can go to the shore of the lake and look into it and observe all those interesting fish that are swimming around down there. Well, those fish, which we normally don't see because everything's stirred up, are the symbols of our subliminal mental processes, which are going on all the time, but we're not aware of it. But when we slow down the mind, we are able to then observe what's going on there. So that's the second stage of the meditation, which is known as higher insight or vipassana. Well, through doing all this kind of thing, we then become familiar with what is mind. But we come to discover then that there is not only this calm state of mind, but also the movement of thoughts which occur. And we experience this in ourselves, but if we practice this for a time, we may discover there is something else there, and this is awareness. We develop this feeling of awareness. When we get to that point, then we are ready to really begin Dzogchen meditation practice. Before that, it's really the threshold. We haven't entered the temple yet. We're maybe just looking in the doorway. But now we can really enter into the practice of Dzogchen. And we discover what is there. There is space. This is the space of the nature of the mind. But this is, as I said, not a dark space at midnight without light of moon and stars. It's a space that is illuminated with Rigpa, or the light of awareness. And these two are inseparable. They're not something that have to be brought together like mixing milk and water. They have been inseparable from the very beginning. And just being in that is to find oneself in the natural state. And when we have that experience in meditation, then it's possible for the Lama to point that out to us and say, this is the natural state. Otherwise, it's alien to us. It's just some word we hear, and we have a conception about it. But having a conception of the natural state is not the natural state. Thinking or judging about the natural state is not the natural state. So then how can we know that we're in the natural state if we're not allowed to think and judge and so on? Well, the thing is, the quality of the natural state is Rigpa, or awareness. So the natural state doesn't have to have anyone know it. It doesn't have to have a second thought or mind which looks at it and say, this is the natural state. The natural state knows itself. It is rangrik. It is self-aware. It's not known by something else, like you have a thought and you think, oh, yes, now I'm in the natural state. If you have that thought, now I'm in the natural state, you're definitely not in the natural state. Any guy who says, well, most of the time, 98% of the time I'm in the natural state, they're usually saying this at some retreat to impress the girls. You know this dude is not in the natural state. Definitely not. Because as soon as you're verbalizing and thinking and judging, then you're in mind. You're not in the nature of mind. You're not in the natural state. The natural state is just the natural state. It is itself. It doesn't need anything else. It's self-aware. It knows itself. So you don't have to know it. It knows it. So if you find yourself in the natural state, no problem. Natural state knows it's in that natural state. You don't have to know it. You are then the natural state. Once you're looking at it and saying, oh, there's a natural state, you're not in the natural state. Now this makes paradoxes of language, but this is the way it works. So the natural state is like the flame of a candle. It illuminates the dark room, but it also illuminates itself. So if you find yourself in the natural state will know it, and you don't have to know it because you are then the natural state. And that is the beginning of Dzogchen practice. That is what meant by trecha. Trecha would mean total relaxation. So you're relaxing all your tensions and rigidities, but you're also relaxing not only emotional ones, but intellectual ones. That is, all your ideas and judgments about things, about what is reality and how it should be and all this kind of thing. You just let it all go and you just be in itself. This is the meaning of this Tibetan word chojak. You find yourself just as it is, without having to do anything else. If you suddenly find yourself in the natural state, you don't then have to jump into meditation position or start reciting mantras or start having beautiful New Age style thoughts, anything like this. If you're in the natural state, you just let it be and it takes care of itself. Now in the natural state, everything is there already. You don't have to separately cultivate the different paramitas or perfections or the different virtues which are described and so on. The natural state has all the virtuous qualities of enlightened beings, so you don't have to then go cultivate or look elsewhere to find anything else. So it is so incredibly simple that it's extremely difficult, because the whole problem, lifetime after lifetime in samsara, is that we're always trying to do something and trying to get someplace instead of just relaxing at the center of our being. That's why the symbol of the Buddhist teachings is not a cross, but a wheel. All our lifetimes in samsara are on the rim of the wheel, but our Buddha nature is in the center of the wheel. So it is there all the time when samsara is revolving. It's never gone anywhere else. You don't have to go on a holiday trip somewhere to Club Med or someplace else to find the Buddha nature. It is there from the very beginning. Now we have these different words: Buddha nature, mind, nature of mind, and so on. So we have to be clear about what we're talking. When we're talking from the standpoint of sutra, it sounds like the Buddha nature is way off there. It's a goal which we will, after many lifetimes of being good little boys and girls, we will eventually grow up and become Buddhas. But that's not the view in Dzogchen. The Buddha nature has been at the core of our being since the very beginning. It is at the center of the wheel. But, unfortunately, each lifetime in samsara, we find ourselves distracted, and we keep watching those different TV shows and changing channels. And the reason we keep doing that each time we watch one of these lifetimes on the cosmic TV, we are fascinated by this soap opera because we are the star. the only problem is the scripts are very badly written. But we come back again and again for these badly written shows, watching them each time. But if we move to the center of the wheel, where our primordially enlightened Buddha nature is, then we don't have to keep revolving on the wheel. We find ourselves in the center of our being, which is beyond time and history and so on. So it's possible to do this through Dzogchen practice, and it is finding what has been there all along. It is like the presence of the clear blue sky above us, but because each day, each lifetime in samsara, the sky has been filled with clouds, and so we don't see the sun or the sky up there. Each lifetime in samsara, our head has been filled with clouds. So it's necessary to do purification practice and remove these obscurations of clouds. And then we discover the sky and the sun, which has been there all along. And so this is the principle in Dzogchen practice. Now, of course, we did distinguish the Buddhahood, which has been there from the very beginning, the Ye Sanje, called in Tibetan, primordial Buddhahood, which is at the core of our being, present here each lifetime in samsara. But because it's obscured and we have forgotten about it and don't recognize it, we think Buddhahood is somewhere off, somewhere else. And maybe if we're good, we'll get there. But when we do practice, then slowly this Buddhahood becomes into manifestation, because we're clearing away the obstacles which are covering it up. And so this is the Buddhahood of the path, which is becoming manifest. And then finally we have the perfect Buddhahood, or the Buddhahood of the result, when we have cleared away the obscurations, and it's like all the clouds in the sky dissolving, and then everything is illuminated with the light of the sun. It's the same way with our primordial Buddhahood, which has been there from the very beginning. And so it's not a question of having simply having a seed, and then the seed has to grow and eventually becomes a big tree, which is the way they speak about it in the sutra system. But in Dzogchen, it is fully present. But we won't see the golden image of the Buddha unless we open the doors of the temple. Otherwise, he stays inside there in the darkness, and we don't see him. So, practice of Dzogchen is about the discovery of our own being, discovery of who we are, which has become obscured and which we have forgotten about each lifetime in samsara, which has led us into unending rebirths and suffering in samsara. Now, of course, the different traditions of Dzogchen have different methods to help with this. So, Tantric Transformation is one sort of practice. Meditation practice with fixating on the white awe and other objects of meditation is another way. As a kind of preliminary to Dzogchen practices, there are the Rushan exercises. This comes from a phrase, Korde Rushan Chewa, which means making a discrimination between samsara and nirvana. And in this case, samsara means mind. Mind is our ordinary way of being and thinking. Samsara is not just this cycle of death and rebirth. Samsara is also the way our mind is working from moment to moment. It's cyclical. It's turning round and round. It's like those old-fashioned clocks where all the wheels are working and so on. This is going on inside. It's all going round and round. This is samsara. And this is mind. And then nirvana here means the nature of mind. If you look for this Buddha nature in yourself, if you're sitting down there in meditation, start looking around inside yourself, sort of, where do you find this Buddha nature? Well, you don't. That's a whole problem. So this is the big discovery, that if you watch a thought and then look for where this thought comes from and it dissolves, what do you find? Well, you find this state which cannot be expressed in words and so on, a state which is beyond thought, but then another thought arises and you're back where you started. If you slow up this mental process, it's possible to remain there for a longer period of time, and also gives you the opportunity to discover what is the nature of mind, because the nature of the mind is not only shunyata and spaciousness, but it is also luminosity and awareness, clarity and awareness. And these are inseparable. In other words, this awareness we call Rigpa is not derived from something else, either chemical or electrical processes in the brain, or anything that is prior to it. It is inherent in existence itself. Existence is shunyata, and shunyata is clear awareness. So it's Rigpa Yermet, as they say in Tibetan. Awareness and emptiness are inseparable from the very beginning. They are fundamental to existence and do not derive from anything else prior to it. They are just there, and so we are here. And we discover this in ourselves. So our experience does not come to an end when our brain stops functioning and our body begins to decay, because the very medium for our existence is in space itself, and space is aware. And so this is there whether we are inhabiting this physical body or not. So after death, our experiences then continue in the bardo and so on. And samsara goes on, and has been since time without beginning. There may be relative beginnings of things or creations, like when we start up our car in the morning, but there is no absolute beginning for samsara. Like there's no absolute beginning for a wheel or a circle. It just goes round and around, and that's what samsara has done. It's gone round and around, but the wheel also has its rim and its center. And when we discover our innate Buddha nature, then we are at the center of the wheel and no longer at the rim. Okay? I've talked for a lot now, and my voice is running out, so if there's any questions or discussions about what I'm saying, we can deal with that now.
Is it okay to introduce, for me this is always a touchy subject, personal experience. Is it okay to have a question? I have a question.
What's wrong with personal experience? I hope we all have it. If there's anybody here who hasn't had personal experience, you can raise your hand.
Well, this was in the midst of noticing I was with a yogini. I was with a yogini And I saw, my mind, I noticed a construct. I was seeing an old construct, and there was, and then I had an awareness of that construct, and all of a sudden there was uber silence, uber quiet, and then I started seeing a clear sphere, incredible, this crystal sphere, just expanding.
Mm-hmm.
And very quiet, extreme quiet. Is there a name for that process, or I don't know.
When you do meditation practice, even if you don't, you can have many experiences, but they're just experiences. And energy manifests, and energy can manifest in many ways. Sometimes it may be meaningful experiences, and sometimes not. Anyway, it's not a problem. It's just experiences come, and then they go, unless you're attached to them.
There was a stainless quality about. It's the only word, I don't know, word.
This is Salwen Yum. This is an experience of clarity. And
That's
just okay.
That's what I'm asking. I have no idea. Okay.
You're the one about the novice who was meditating and had a spontaneous visualization of the merit field. Ran to his master and said, Master, I had a spontaneous visualization of the merit field. What do I do? He says, keep meditating, it'll go away.
Yeah. You don't make a big deal of it. I mean, experiences will arise, and they're just experiences.
Natural mind, is that can you be closer to it or further away from natural mind? Is that an absolute?
No, it's not natural mind. The term here is nature of mind, because it's reflecting two separate Tibetan words, sem, mind, and sem yi, nature of mind. Now, nature of mind is the source of mind and the matrix of mind. But the nature of to give an example, the nature of the mind is like a mirror, and mind are like the reflections in the mirror. Now, we are actually the nature of mind, the mirror, but we've forgotten about that. So instead of living in the mirror, we're living in the reflections. So we are living in our mental constructions of reality. We're not living in reality itself. Nature of mind is what we are. But mind is what we think we are.
What do you think?
I think, and this is all being recorded here on tape too.
John, may we thank you for your generosity and the beautiful way you lay it out for us in such an open and fair and candid way that makes it accessible, which I'm very grateful for, and I'm sure we all are too. Thank you for coming.
Okay, I thank you, Mark, for inviting me back here into the Gyalshen Institute, and thank everybody else who showed up on this Sunday